Okay, so it's a big day, right? I see plenty of cowboy jerseys. So how many people are actually rooting for the Cowboys today? Okay, good amount. And how many are rooting for the Packers today? Several. And how many are rooting for the Steelers today? A few, okay. And how many are rooting for the Chiefs today? Oh, wow, more than I thought, okay. And who's looking forward to spring training? All right. Now, I want to make sure you hear this from me. I do not think there is any correlation with how much you give today to the church and the impact it will have on your team today. But just to be safe, just kidding. So today we watch 4 more teams pursue something, right? They're pursuing a championship. They're pursuing a Super Bowl championship. And I think for us, it makes so much sense to us because we're all pursuing something in life. And we all want to be number one. We're all pursuing titles or popularity, or at least we want to be recognized for our hard work. We're pursuing, we go to work and we pursue wealth. We want to be successful at what we do. Actually, there's an article I read yesterday. It's a couple years old. Did you know that there's an amount of money you can make that actually will make you happy? Princeton wrote an article that said, if your household makes $75,000 a year, you will be, that is the number of the greatest happiness, $75,000 a year or more. But it was changed because of cost of living. It was adjusted for Texas. And if you make just under $70,000 a year in Texas, you will, 7 or more, that is the number of happiness. And so we spend our lives pursuing things. But 1 Corinthians 13, I think, gives us 3 things that we should pursue above everything else. 3 things that we should pursue above everything else. Faith, hope, and love. And I have to tell you a story about the power of faith, hope, and love. And it's a story that I've told partially before, but I need to tell it again because there's new information. Growing up, my first 8 years of my life, I lived in a suburb just north of Detroit. When I was 9, we moved out further into the country, but it was a subdivision like any other subdivision, and there was a bunch of kids on my street, and there was my best friend Matt, best man at my wedding, lived right next door to me. We met when we were less than 1. We rode big wheels together in our diapers. And across the street from me was Alan, who's one of my best friends. His wife is being induced tomorrow. He's going to have his first child. So spent a lot of time talking to him on Friday night. He was a little nervous. So I was just assuring him that he was ready. And 2 doors down to the left was Paul. And Paul was 2 or 3 years older than us. He was just a couple years older than us, just a little bit better than us at everything, and he was the one we wanted to be like. Paul was, it wasn't so much like he was the leader of the younger kids, but all the younger kids looked up to him. Paul was the youngest of 5. He had 2 older sisters, Audrey and Carolyn, and 2 older brothers, Brian and Patrick. And the mother was Mary, and the father, Bill. Paul graduated from high school, I believe, in 1994. In 1993, his oldest sister, Carolyn, was diagnosed with cancer. In 1994, Paul was diagnosed with cancer, and his brother Patrick a little while after that. Carolyn died in 1994. Paul died in 1995. On her way to the funeral, his sister Audrey was a Navy recruiter, got into a car accident, and died. His brother Patrick died in 1996. 5 children, 4 of them died of cancer within 3 years. 3 of them died of cancer, 1 died in a car accident within 3 years. Bill, the father, died in 2000 from cancer. And so that's the story that I've told in the past. The story of Mary, who lost 4 children and her husband to cancer. She has 1 son remaining. His name is Brian. Brian got married, moved to North Carolina, started a family. Brian had 2 children that have died. one in 2012 and one in 2014. So Mary has lost 4 children, a husband, and 2 grandchildren. Mary passed away this week at 82 years old. That's the reason why I felt obligated to tell this story. I was going to put it on Facebook, but I thought this is too powerful, this is too important. You need to hear this from here. Mary went to visit her son, whose wife had just given birth to twins. And she flew home, and she was in a car service. I don't know if it was Uber or something along those lines, driving back from the airport, and she was in a car accident. And she was in ICU for a couple weeks, and she died at 82 years old. And you look at this woman who, she had the right name, didn't she, Mary? Who had so much loss in her life. So much loss in her life. Who dealt with so much pain in her life. And you ask, how could anyone get through that type of loss? And the answer is faith, hope, and love. Faith, hope, and love brought her through that kind of pain. And I'd like to explain what I mean when I say that. Faith. Mary had the faith that her faith wasn't, God isn't going to give me anything that I can't handle. That's not Mary's faith. If Mary had that kind of faith, she would look to God and say, enough! Or why did you make me so strong? She had the faith that no matter what she went through, God was with her. That she thought that God did not give me this. God did not give my children cancer. God did not take my children away from me. I am not Job. I know that things like this, it just happened, and I can't explain it, but I know that the only way that I've made it through is because God has been with me every single step of the way. And every single step of the way, she continued to look to God and say, just like Samuel, here I am, God, how can you use me? And for 20 years, she was active in her Catholic church, comforting bereaved families. When somebody came through the church and they had lost somebody, they called Mary and she comforted them. Here I am, God, she would say. And God would say, well, I need you to help out this homeless ministry. And so she had a ministry where she did the laundry for these homeless men who would come and stay at a shelter. It was her faith that carried her through, knowing that God was with her in her darkest moments. Faith, hope. Hope. I think for Mary, hope is something different than it is for all of us. For Mary, I think hope is that wherever there is, it's better than here. Whatever's next is better than this. And I think she looked forward to that her entire life. It was like when Jesus came and started following his disciples. And he'd say, come and see and follow me. And they're like, okay, we believe you. Well, why do you believe me? Well, because you saw me while, under a fig tree. And Jesus is like, do you believe me because of that? Trust me, you're going to see cooler stuff. There's better stuff to come. That's the hope that we all have, is that there is something better to come. And when we look back on this life, wherever it is that we go, we're going to remember that there was some difficult stuff we went through, but we're not going to remember what it felt like. As Mark Allen Powell would say, it's just a flicker in time. It's like, yeah, I remember that stuff hurt, but I don't remember that pain anymore because I am now in a place without pain. I am now in a place without suffering. I am now in a place without loss. And that's good news. That is good news. I think we talk about the communion of saints, and although the Bible doesn't really talk about it that much, I like to think about the reunion of saints, about when we get there, wherever there is, that there are going to be people there that we know, people whom we have lost, who we love, and who we know loved us. And it's going to be a reunion of the saints. And so hope is a powerful thing. Faith, hope, but there's nothing more powerful than love. Love is the greatest. I'd like to ask you, each of you here, raise your hands, please. Have you ever loved anyone unconditionally? If you've loved somebody unconditionally, will you raise your hands? I know many of you children don't know what that means yet. and I pray that someday you will. But if you are capable of loving somebody unconditionally, I'm here to tell you there's nothing you can do better than God can do. And just imagine how capable you are of loving someone, and imagine that God is better than that when it comes to loving you and everyone who's sitting in this room today, and everyone who's sitting in every worship center, sanctuary this morning, and everyone who's not. Unconditional love for you. That love of God helps us, is the light that shines in our darkness when we don't know where to turn, when we don't feel like getting out of bed. That's what gives us hope. That's what we have faith in. It all centers around God's love. God's love is everything. And God's love, this is the best part, it never fails and it never ends. It always will be. There will come a point when faith will be useless. We will be there. We will no longer need faith when we are standing in the presence of Jesus. We will no longer need hope when our hopes are realized. But faith, but love will never stop. Love will never cease to be useful. Love will always grow. Always. It will always get better. Because God's love will continue to grow. Our understanding of God's love will continue to grow. And there will be a point when that's all we know is love. Faith, hope, and love can get us through the darkest moments of life. Faith, hope, and love can change our life. Faith, hope, and love can change our world. Faith, hope, and love are more important than anything else we're pursuing. I hope that this story that I tell you about Mary is one that you hear and understand as victory, not as loss. Because this is a woman who the world looked at and said she has lost nearly everything. But she would tell you, no, I have not lost everything. I have everything I'll ever need because I have a God who loves me. And so do you. Amen.